Welcome to another episode of the Understanding Crypto series. Today, we're going to take a look at Kleiman versus Wright. Kleiman versus Wright is a lawsuit that was filed in 2018 in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida. And it's a lawsuit between Ira Kleiman, who is representing the estate of David Kleiman, as well as a company called W&K Info Defense Research, suing Craig Wright. Now, a little bit of background on this court case. Now, this court case is rather involved, and the history behind Craig Wright and David Kleiman is also rather involved. But I'll give you a brief high-level view of this. So, a number of years ago, obviously Bitcoin was created in 2008 with the white paper, and then the Bitcoin network actually launched in January 2009. So obviously it took a fair amount of work to create Bitcoin. So the work on Bitcoin probably took place in 2007 and 2008. Well, in 2013, David Kleiman passed away. And after he passed, around the time he was passing away, a little bit afterwards, Craig Wright had told Ira Kleiman that Craig and David had been involved in doing Bitcoin stuff, and that W&K Information Defense Research is actually only partially owned by David Kleiman, and that Craig Wright was, and at least presumably, one of the other owners, or perhaps his wife was. Well, because Craig Wright claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, there were some thoughts that perhaps David Kleiman and Craig Wright had in fact mined over 1 million Bitcoins, as Satoshi is rumored to have mined. And so this lawsuit was basically a lawsuit by Ira Kleiman on behalf of the estate of David Kleiman, as well as on behalf of W&K Information Defense Research, suing Craig Wright for half of the Bitcoins that Satoshi Nakamoto is supposedly mined, which of course is going to be a rather large amount of money. Now, the way this works is that this went to a jury trial, and the jury trial was asked to render a verdict on several things. Basically, were these things proven? And generally, the burden of proof is going to be 51%. Is it more likely than not? But for certain aspects, sometimes it's a little bit different. So let's take a look at what the jury came up with as to whether or not they thought that Craig Wright owed Bitcoins and other compensation to Ira Kleiman and W&K Information Defense Research. So the first thing that was asked was breach of partnership. This basic idea that, were David and Craig Wright in a partnership, and did Craig breach it? And the answer from the jury is no. They found that Craig Wright's not liable to the estate for breach of partnership. The second question was conversion. Did you find that Craig Wright is liable to the estate of David Kleiman or W&K Information Defense Research for conversion? Conversion is basically taking something without permission. And so question 4 says, if you answered yes to question 3 in conversion, identify to whom Craig Wright is liable for conversion. And they had 2 options, the estate of David Kleiman and W&K Information Defense Research. And they found yes, that Craig Wright converted something from WK in Defense Research. Then question 5 is, what sort of damages did you find? Did you owe anything to the estate? Well, no, because they didn't find it for the estate. And did you owe anything to WK Defense Research? And do you owe anything from Bitcoins? And the answer is no. But do you owe any amount for intellectual property? And here they said the answer is 100 million. They had several other questions. Did Craig Wright engage in civil theft? And the answer was no there. And then did Craig Wright engage in fraud? And the answer was no there. And did he engage in constructive fraud? And the answer is no there. Breach of fiduciary duty, basically that would mean, was he, responsible as a director of the partnership, and did he breach that duty to the owners of the partnership? And the answer is no. And unjust enrichment, was there any unjust enrichment going on? And the answer is no there as well. Finally, there was a affirmative defense of the statute of limitations. And they found that the affirmative defense of the statute of limitation was not barred for conversion. And as far as W&K information defense research was concerned, Craig Wright also asserted affirmative defense of latches, and that was not barred for conversion. And there are no punitive damages. And that was all resolved by the jury on the 6th of December, 2021, earlier this week. So, what's the result of this? Well, Craig Wright was vindicated on most of this stuff. Basically, now again, this doesn't mean, this basically means it wasn't proven. They didn't have sufficient evidence to prove it was more likely than not that Craig Wright did these things. But they did fine for conversion of the amount of $100 million. Now, you would have to look deeper at the evidence and then trial to really get into why the jury came up with this being proven. What kind of evidence was there that persuaded? You'd have to go through the documents, look at the witness testimony, and to come to some conclusions as to why the jury was proven on this basis, but they were not proven on any of the other facts. But with that, this stops my short little video on a really interesting court case that took place in Florida District Court, specifically the case of Ira Kleiman versus Craig Wright. There's been a lot of news on this case. It's probably the most famous Bitcoin case out there so far. So I want to thank everyone for watching this Understanding Crypto video, and tune in next time when I'll dive deeper into topics related to Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, and so on.